And Dave, there we go. Just because I can see you, can you confirm that it is recording?
It is. I got the notification across the top that recording has started, and I see the red button.
Great,
So
thank you.
looks like we're good.
All right, fantastic. Well, welcome everyone. Again, my name is Chad Simmons with the Vermont Housing Finance Agency, and we are really excited to have you all here for an update on the Vermont Homeowner Assistance Program. Today, we're really hoping to spend a good chunk of our time being able to walk through the application and provide a demonstration. So that'll be a bulk of our time together. We're also going to provide just some general updates for all of you to be able to get some information as we prepare to launch the program. And we'll also provide some information on affiliate roles, as well as the agreement that we'll have all folks be able to sign and return back to us. And so we'll provide an updated timeline on all of those things. Before I get started, I see some folks have their hands raised, so I just want to make sure if you have any clarifying questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or ask now. But Bruce, do you have a question?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. I'm trying to figure out how to turn it off.
That is all right.
Team's fumbling.
No worries. We totally understand. So welcome. Good to have you here. So for just some, and that's actually a good segue into just some real basic information, logistics around teams. We know folks are fairly accustomed to doing these virtual meetings, but maybe on different platforms and different settings. So I will be following the chat function, which is about in the center top of your screen for most. It's right next to a list of participants. And so please feel free to use your chat function if you have any questions or need anything clarified. Your hand function is right next to that. So you can raise your hand or send some love, share some fireworks if you're really excited. So please feel free to use that function as well. And I'll be able to see who has a question as you all raise your hand. As I said earlier, if you haven't had a chance, please put your name and your affiliated agency in the chat so that we'll have a good sense of who's all here. And we are recording today's session for those who aren't able to make it to be able to share this information out. So with that, I am going to turn it over to George, and George is going to give us a real brief update on the affiliates agreement. And I'll drop that link in the chat. So George, if you want to go ahead and give an update.
Hi. So yeah, the affiliates agreement is the agreement for the work to be performed with helping folks fill in applications. For those of you who will also be doing credit counseling, that's a separate document that'll come a little bit later time. But we wanted to get this one out today while we had all of you guys on the line. Basically, it goes through what we've I think all discussed in the past. Did you drop that in the chat? Oh,
I can do that, George.
Sure. I mean, it doesn't need to. We don't need to take a lot of time with it, but if you guys can review it, you think you've all seen it. There were a couple of changes based on some feedback to add some more specific anti-discrimination language, and also a little bit about if you have additional costs that you need to bill us, that we ask that you submit those invoices by the end of the following month from when they're accrued. So those are really the only two changes from what you've previously seen. And we'd appreciate getting those back as soon as you can, along with your W-9s and payment information and a copy of your 501c3 letter so that we can have that all together in the file and get you guys all set up in the system. So that is everything to do with the agreement. Billing.
Thanks, George.
Th-
Chad, did you want to just take a minute to review the agenda or just jump right in?
Sure, I can go over that again. So just real quickly, so we will have another minute if you have any questions at all about the agreement. As George was saying, that we'll need to get those back fairly quickly by December 21st. And then we're going to spend a little time just talking about the general launch update. So George will be able to provide an update on where things are at. But most of the time today, we're going to spend in kind of the role overview and then the application demo. So we're going to have a good chunk of time to be able to look at the demo of the application and be able to take any questions at all. And then finally, we'll end with kind of next steps and what folks can be looking for in the coming weeks. So I'll stop there. Any questions on the agenda at all before we have any clarifying questions on the agreements? Not seeing any hands in any form. And so I'll read a couple of questions related to the agreement. So question from Travis George, will you be able to provide a list eventually of the agencies who are providing applications assistance so that agencies who are not can make appropriate referrals?
Yeah, and I responded that we plan to be able to make that available on the website. So that was something folks should look for.
Yep, the link that I emailed you all earlier will be a page that'll be built out. As you return your agreements, we'll be able to build out that list of affiliate organizations that are available to help applicants who need help. And that page will be very accessible on VHFA's website.
Great. Another question around interpretation services be billable cost in this agreement.
Yes, so translation services, as well as to the extent that you have somebody goes out of pocket because they drive over to someone's house. Those were the two things that I think we heard were of the most concern. And the translation is at $50, and then the mileage is at whatever the IRS rates are for mileage.
Great, thank you, George.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the timing of how this is looking right now, George?
Just the program itself?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, we have, obviously we got our first round of comments from Treasury on the plan. We submitted a response to them a few weeks ago. We were hoping to have heard back from Treasury by now, but obviously we're not getting a lot of love from them right now. Actually, they did a round of approvals for states. In pretty quick succession, they approved like 6 states, but then they just sort of fell silent for a while. So nobody's heard from them in a bit. We are hoping to hear from them by the end of this week, maybe the beginning of next week. We are hoping that we have a final approval from them by year end, which means we are hoping that we will be opening the portal, in early January. So that is the hope. I think it's fairly, the reason that we're willing to go through the portal review now is because I think we're fairly confident that we will end up pretty much in the place where we are, that, it's really just a matter of process for them, and that it's not like there's something hugely objectionable with the way we've organized things. So I think what you will be seeing here for what the application will look like and what people will be asked to provide is pretty much the final version. And this should also give you just a sense of the look and feel of this site and how and how it will be to work with once you do start helping folks. But that's sort of the timeline we're dealing with right now.
Thanks. I thought I could just touch on basically what the affiliates might be doing to help the applicant who is pursuing HAP assistance. I'm going to share my screen real quick here. Because this helps me collect my thoughts about what you all are doing and how the process might work. There will be applicants looking for help, and they may find out about the affiliates in a few different ways, but probably the most common way will be they will go in through the online application, and there will be a list of your agencies and some contact information. And so they will find out about you via this list of the agencies that are available to help applicants, and then they will contact you and ask you for help. And so we're calling these you all application assistants and outreach providers. We're calling you HAP affiliates, and the process would be that the affiliate will then help a homeowner who finds out about you, contacts you, and asks you for help with their application. You would meet with the homeowner and determine whether they just need help with an application or if their needs are more extensive and are going to require a good amount of time. If that's the case, then you would want to treat them as, or you'd want to suggest to them that they seek housing counseling or perhaps legal services from Vermont Legal Aid, because those types of organizations are going to be able to provide the more extensive services that some applicants will need. And we'll talk a little bit more about that before we sign off today. But in terms of application assistance, you would be meeting with a homeowner and using their own login and password to basically help them complete the application online and submit it. And there will be you'll see very shortly that there's a field right in the beginning of the application where you would be you'd ensure that the applicant that you've been selected as the agency that's helping the applicant with their application, and that's how you would be paid for this assistance. If the applicant does need translations assistance, or you need to travel to reach them, as George mentioned, you'll be compensated for that, and you would be submitting a separate invoice for those special expenses. But essentially, you would be helping the applicant submit their application. You will have special support through VHFA, the staff that are dedicated to the Homeowner Assistance Program, either through this email address, homeownerassistance@vhfa.org, or through a dedicated phone line to these staff people here at VHFA. And they'll be able to help if you have specific questions. And you will also likely be, in addition to folks who just need help with their application, if somebody is doing a paper application, they will likely be advised to come find one of you to help them with that as well. And then you would, the homeowner would click submit, and that would be the end of your application assistance. Or if that's not possible and they do need further services, you would, like I said earlier, you'd be referring them to one of the agencies who can provide housing counseling or legal services. So I am going to share this slide deck with you all. I think it's I think my colleague may have already put it up on our website, and I'll be able to share it with you by the end of this meeting. But I wanted you to have these phone numbers and these contact information and web addresses handy so that you feel like you know where you can go for more information. And so these are the VHFA staff that I mentioned earlier, as well as a place for promotional materials about the program, including a flyer and some other materials that can help you in the other piece of your role as an affiliate, which is to help spread the word about the HAP program. We need to make sure that all of the folks in Vermont who might benefit from this program hear about it, especially populations who have been historically underserved by programs like this. We really need to make sure the word gets out to them, and so we'll be counting on you to share this with in terms of newsletters or your website, and the variety of interfaces that you have with the customers that you typically work with. So I will stop talking for a bit and
Thank you.
maybe
Thank you,
hand it
Leslie.
over. Yeah, hand it over to after I answer questions. And I'm eager for you to see the application, the portal itself. So that's still coming up.
Great. So thank you, Leslie, for those details. So as I put in the chat, if folks have any questions around the roles or this process, you can drop it in the chat or ask it here. And we will have more time at the end if we need to let this sit and stew for a little bit for Q&A. We'll give Tom, looks like you have your hand raised. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. I just one quick question on the HAP helpline. Is that being contracted out? Just curious who's going to be providing that service.
Yeah, that's contracted out to a company called Tidal Basin. I don't think the helpline is up yet, so I wouldn't make that. That's not a place where people should call right now. That'll be at once the portal is actually open, and that's, initially at least it's mostly going to be for people who are having technical issues, just trying to set themselves up. But yeah, that's who that is.
Yeah, and as we know, we're working closely with the VSHA and the VRAP program, and we've done about 700 applications at this point successfully. We want to. I would like to just make sure that the helpline has enough information to be helpful, because the current helpline, as we initially at least dealt with, was basically taking the call and then looking up the county and then referring them to us. So we became sort of the de facto helpline anyway, which then takes you away from the ability to process applications.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, if you have a particular question, I mean, obviously the 802 number that we gave you, that's for folks here in the building. So, well, not in the building because we're all remote, but who work for VHFA directly. So if something comes up that, the helpline isn't, one of your folks that you're working with isn't getting an answer that they need because the people just don't know what the issue is, it's not in their script or whatever, obviously you can call us direct.
Yeah, we're just trying to avoid being the helpline too, only because we really got to process applications and it's distracting.
Right, and we're not. The idea is not to use the helpline isn't. The call center is not giving out numbers for agencies. We do have spots where people are asked if they want assistance, or on the website, we say here are these different folks that can help you out, but it's not like you're going to get a direct referral from our call center to say, go call Wyndham Windsor, or go call Brock, or go call,
Yeah, we're happy to take the referrals.
Right.
On that, in that respect, absolutely, yeah.
Great.
So if they have a robust script, they'll probably be better apt to be able to answer them. Because it is a myriad questions that come up, as you know, that once we get into this, that's what happens to the individual, you know, the folks in need that are
Right.
reaching
And
out
I mean,
to this
and like I
program.
said, initially, for most people, the most calls are related to the technical issues of setting up their application. And obviously, that's really not going to be something that you guys can get involved with unless you are in fact walking them through and setting it up with them. Otherwise, and you don't know the technical specs of the way the system works, so they should handle that within the call center themselves.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, Tom, for that question. So what I'm going to suggest now is that we move into the application demonstration. And what might be best right now is, unless you have any really immediate clarifying questions, why don't we hold our questions until after the demonstration, and then we can kind of provide a little bit more space for a Q&A if that works for folks. So, so Leslie, I'm sorry. Yeah, Sarah. Sorry, I'm seeing Leslie, but I'm not seeing.
No problem. Sarah's going to do the walkthrough. She's on our IT staff, but she's been heavily involved with helping to spec out, helping to test this application.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah, whenever you're ready.
All right, so is everyone seeing my screen here? Should see this
Yep.
logo. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to walk through the portal today from registration through submission. All applicants will come to this site when they click apply now. Here are different languages available for the entire portal. You're going to need to register with a verifiable email address. You won't be able to apply until you click on a link inside of your email. So I've got this one set up and ready to go. I'm going to click register, and then it's going to ask me for a verification code. And that should come into my email here shortly. Long part. Okay. There we go. So you're going to get this page with a little verification code in your email to go back and just verify that you're not a robot, and now you can log in. So my profile's been created successfully. So I came in here and pre-filled an application a little bit just to save time. So I'm going to run through all of the screens here. On a new account, they're directed right to this application. And this is the first question on the application that Leslie was referring to earlier. An agency could select their name here, and then the person who works at an agency who helped an applicant fill out their application. Their name and email address is pre-filled in the application, and then they can select from the USPS database their address, or they could type in an address here. Is your home in a mobile park? Is your mailing address the same? Do you need legal or homeownership counseling to help you? And so you can select this question here or later in the application. And then there's an option to designate an authorized representative to discuss the application if there's you know, a friend or family member or somebody else who can help them. This is going to verify the address. Here's demographic information. Go ahead and say I do have income so that doesn't delete my questions on the next screen.
You want to talk about the save and exit function?
Sure. So if I get to a question and I need a document and I don't have it, or I don't have time to continue with my application, I can click save and exit. I can log out and log back in. And when I click resume, it will take me right back to where I was. So that's helpful. Okay, I'm going to go through here.
Sarah, I'm sorry. Would you mind showing the group at the beginning of the application where the applicant would enter the name of the affiliate agency if one of these
Sure.
agencies is helping them?
So it's the first question on the application here. Are you filling out this application on behalf of someone else? You would select your agency here and then the name of the person, agency representative, we'll name them. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
I keep clicking through here. Get back to household composition. So if this is actually blank when people come to the screen, and then they'll select the number of members of their household, and then they'll need to add all the information for any other residents in their home. So we'll say, is this person a co-borrower? So these aren't clickable. Okay, so now I'm going to continue through. And here's the income screen. So there are many sources of income that they can fill out. For every source of income that they enter, they'll be asked to provide documentation for that income. They can fill out these fields. And so due to pandemic related circumstances, I'm not able to provide income documentation. That will just prompt the case manager to work with them to provide proof of their income. If they're receiving public benefits, they have a required document to upload as proof. Okay. So if they need help with their primary residence, they're prompted for needing assistance with their mortgage payment. And if they do need assistance with their mortgage payment, they need to watch this video that VHFA has produced with information about it. And so we'll just go ahead and say we watch the video. Leslie, do you want us to watch the video right now?
No, I don't think we need to take that time right now, but just so you all know, it's a really short video that just lets the applicant, makes the applicant aware of some of the mortgage loss mitigation options that might be worth checking out on their part before actually applying for HAP money. So it's an educational video, and hopefully it will be helpful to folks who need help keeping their mortgage payments manageable in the future.
I will drop that link in the chat for folks as well.
Thank you. And so this screen is really where we get into the nitty-gritty of their mortgage details. If they have HOA fees, property taxes included. Just say delinquent. And And then they have the option of adding additional mortgages on their property. So, HOA fees. Go to the next screen, and here's utility assistance. So I've pre-filled some here, but folks can enter as many utilities as they want. Continue, and now we get to the document upload, so that this is all filled based on what an applicant entered on the previous screens. So just gonna enter some fake documents here. And then we're at the review screen. So this is where they will finish. They'll sign their application here. And they can either sign on the screen, or they can sign with text, or they can upload a signature. So their choices. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And I get congratulated. So now I can see my dashboard whenever I log in, and it will show me the status of my application, the date it was submitted, and then the 3 programs that I've requested assistance for and the status updates on each of those. So I've requested HOA fees, utility fees, and mortgage reinstatement assistance. Is there anything that we want to go over in this application again, or is this good?
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Sarah. I think that's a really good place to stop and see if there's any clarifying questions on the application itself. We have a number of really great questions in the chat that we'll get to that are mostly around content, but I wanted to just first stop and see if there's any clarifying questions on the application itself. So a question kind of more around the process from Karen in the chat is, this was pretty quick. Will they get a chance to go through the app again with clients before talking with clients?
It's a great question. As soon as this portal is ready and we have our Treasury approval, it will be available on our website, on the HAP website, and you all can get in there just the way we have been and learning the application. As George mentioned, we don't have a date yet for that happening. We're anticipating a soft launch of sorts when that does happen, and my hope is that you'll be able to get into the application portal yourselves and get to know it a bit. There's really no substitute for getting in there and testing it and learning it yourselves on your, with your own computers. Us demoing it isn't ever going to be as helpful to you as just getting your feet wet and getting right in there. And so the way that will roll out is that when this soft launch happens, you'll all know in advance when that's going to happen, and that so that you can jump in there.
Thank you, Leslie. So I'm going to go and there's a couple of clarifying questions. And Dawn, I see you had your hand raised, but you posted in the chat. Do all family members need to be included?
It's all members of the household. So this is based on household size. So we need to know the information with respect to the total number of members of the household and income information for anybody over the age of 18.
So it's asking for social security numbers and stuff. You have to include that for the children as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go back up. Actually, it looks like there's a couple of clarifying questions as well. So if Grace said, if someone fails to choose a program they need, like utility, is there a way to go back into the application to amend it?
We're looking at a process because people aren't necessarily going to need everything at once, right? So we are looking at a process for, if you come in because you're facing a imminent utility cutoff, for example, but maybe you aren't sure you're going to need a mortgage help for a little while, having some time period during which you can add a program after your initial application submission. It's not going to be forever. It'll probably be a 30 or 60 days, 30 or 60, sorry, 90 day or 6 month window, but that's what we're looking at.
Great. So, go ahead.
No, sorry.
I'm gonna call on Tom and Shanda who've got their hands raised, and then I'm gonna go back over the questions that are in the chat. We'll kind of start from the top and work our way down. So Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Just very briefly, maybe obvious, but is this designed then, with the exception, of course, if we're assisting with uploading documents and so forth, that we can do this by telephone? So we are doing the VRAP applications that way. We're able to go through a half dozen completed applications a day, but the phone is what really makes that so efficient and effective on behalf of the clients.
Yeah, I mean, the big issue is signing.
Okay, so it does have to be signed.
Yeah, especially for most everything, but specifically the third-party authorizations for the mortgage servicers, they won't talk to us unless we show them that we have a signed third-party authorization from the actual applicant, their actual borrowers. So it'll be whoever's on the mortgage.
Got it. Okay, so in theory, we could do it all except that they can come in, because what we're doing, of course, yeah, they come in and take care of that item. Yeah. Okay.
Right, or set it up, and maybe they can come in with any, if they have some paperwork that needs to be uploaded, and then they can sign. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks, George.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Shanda, go ahead. And you may be muted, so just check and see if you're muted.
So for anyone over the age of 18, do they have to have, if they don't have income, is there going to be a no income attestation form? Or will they
yeah, there's a spot where they would indicate that they don't have any income.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Great, thank you. And I think there was another question on that as well, so we'll get to that. So for those following along at home, I'm going to start at the top of the questions. Karen asks, what do you suggest for homeowners with no email access? We have been creating accounts for VRAP applicants until they created the option to log in with a phone number.
There's really no way for this system electronically to contact you other than using emails, right? So creating an application is great, and you can figure out ways to do it, but somehow you got to have a way to get back to people for if you need additional information. We asked you to upload a copy of your mortgage statement, but instead you accidentally sent us a cat photo, things like that. So if for purposes of doing the electronic application, if you're going to go in that way, you really need to have a usable email address that's similar to what we had in MAP. And most folks worked it out. I mean, they had a friend, the agencies sometimes helped out with that, and it worked out. To the extent that somebody is not going to have that, then it's going to have to be a paper application that gets submitted on paper, and we have to load it in manually, and the contacts are going to be, with phone calls, and it's just going to be slow. And it's going to be a bit arduous, and so it'll be available, but that's really the only option.
Great, and Karen, I see your hand up. A clarifying question on that part.
Yeah, can we use our own email addresses? Like, could we use our email address for more than one application if we want to be the communication point for someone who doesn't have access?
I think, Sarah, you confirmed for
Dave?
me that I don't think that you can do that. I think you'd have to set up a separate email. Is that right?
Dave or Sarah, do you want to jump in and answer that?
I don't believe so. I don't, unless you know differently, Sarah, I don't think you can have multiple applications tied to a single email address.
At this time, I don't think we've demoed anything like that, but I believe there is functionality. If that's something that we're interested in doing, I don't know if it's through this portal or the case management portal, but there should be an option for one contact to manage multiple applications.
No.
But I think that would have to be, we would be setting you guys up in the system itself as opposed to, yeah, and that is different. I mean, I would say that the easiest thing to do would be, setting up a Gmail account is not that, it's pretty easy. So, and if,
But then somebody has to go back and check that
Right.
Gmail account. And so we could, as affiliates, have a list of 10 people and we have to log into all these Gmails to see if there's any communication through those. So, I mean, if it was possible for that communication to come directly to our own emails, that would certainly be a lot easier.
There is a way to create multiple email addresses that will all flow into a single email. And I just learned this testing. And so I think that could be really helpful for you all. So I think I should write down the steps for doing this because it might be exactly what is needed. Anyway, basically, so I have my own Gmail account and I can create new email addresses that will all flow into my Gmail account by adding a number to the end of the Gmail of the email address. And so I'll add that to a list of tips and tricks for the affiliates in case that's helpful to you. George, I also had a question about phone. Isn't Tidal Basin, I think our HAP program will be able to take phone applications as well. So an applicant can call the helpline and basically talk through their, tell the helpline the answer to each of these questions, and they can enter it for them that way too. So there is some functionality to help folks by phone directly. Even doesn't have to go through you all. It could go directly to the program.
right, but that would still, I mean, there's still the backup documentation and how that gets input, and so that would still be there.
Yeah.
Great. So I see there's a couple more questions around email and communications. I just want to make sure that all of those questions are answered before I move on to another question. Grace shares, could there be an additional field on the application for additional email addresses where you would like to receive communication? That way affiliates could also get updates about an application.
I think that I don't know that that's a capability. We can ask about it, find out. I know that there are spots where it allows for other third parties to be a designated contact, right, Sarah? So I believe that that is the case. That if you can fill it out and then designate some third party as a contact, and then that.
I'm not sure if they get notifications, but I think that would be possible since there is a place to collect authorized representative email address information.
Okay, I'm going to go back up to the top and so the question is, before entering the application, is there a list of things the applicant needs to complete the application that includes Social Security, date of birth, etc.?
You mean a preset list that we would send out? I mean, we could
Well,
try.
It
Sorry.
happens a lot that people get into the application and then they go, oh, I don't have everybody's social security number. Hang on. And then they're scrabbling around. So if that was on the list ahead of time, so they come prepared with all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we can do that. Just remember, you can save and close. I mean, you don't have to keep it open. If you're finding that, oh, I need it wants this or that, and I don't have time to do that right now, you can save out of it and then come back to it.
I think for the affiliates, George, I'm thinking like logistically, they may have, one
right.
session with this applicant
Right,
and,
right.
so
Right.
that's a great idea because we had listed the documentation in the resources portion of the program website, but we don't have a list, and this would be a great addition, a list of the information that you would need at a minimum to file an application. So we can create one of those and make that available. Thank you for the suggestion.
Okay. See if let's see. Oh, okay. Question around if we're filling out on someone's behalf that doesn't have computer skills or access, how should we share the information about the video? Is there a printable version or another way to get that information out to folks?
Well, the video is on YouTube. So I don't know that there's a way to play it or provide. I mean, we could presumably share the script for anyone who would like to go through it. I mean, I think that the most important aspect of the video is that to the extent that somebody is coming for mortgage assistance, we want to remind them that there are a lot of programs for loss mitigation that they might want to look at before they come to us for mortgage assistance, because those are set up theoretically. I mean, according to the people we talked to at Fannie Mae and FHA and everybody else, that these loss mitigation for COVID are very easy to do. They're pretty much just tell us you need it and we'll give it to you kind of situations that don't require a lot of effort and work. And they want us to encourage people to look into that before they necessarily ask for Homeowner Assistance Program money, because this is the time to ask for it, because these programs aren't necessarily going to last forever. And if you get Homeowner Assistance Program money now to do a reinstatement, you may not have a chance to do loss mitigation under these expedited programs later. So that's really the message that they want us to get out, and that's kind of the message that the video is intended to reinforce. But we can provide the script, certainly.
Okay, thank you, George. And Karen, I see your hand is up. Do you have a clarifying question on something?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Maybe it's still up from a while ago. I don't know
is
how to
all
make
right.
it not up, so.
You just click on it again.
Oh,
and
yeah, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So no worries, no worries. A couple of questions from Grace, and I am aware of the time. We got just about 8 minutes left, so I'm going to try to peel through some of these questions in the chat as best we can. So from Grace, there's two parts here. Shouldn't the homeowner's insurance be included as possible escrowed payment, as well as a question around doesn't there have to be original promissory note in hand to be able to fill out the original loan amount? So those two questions about content needed.
The loan amount I think is the current balance is what it's asking for, not the original loan amount.
No, I think we asked for the original loan amount because we need to
Oh, no, but
test
I'm
it.
sorry. I apologize. We do
Yeah,
ask for it, but it is not a required field. So they
Okay,
don't know.
sorry. I thought I saw an asterisk, which was why I was worried that people would get tripped up on that,
Yeah.
because a lot of my clients don't. They'll have a mortgage statement that says
Nobody
current.
knows what their original loan amount was. Geez, I couldn't even remember. can't imagine remembering what
Well,
mileage.
well, I've done so many refis, I can't remember way
Yeah,
back.
exactly.
Anyway.
Okay, so that's the one. The other, what was the other question? I'm sorry.
So
If the
I-
homeowner doesn't, oh, go ahead, Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I thought I saw a question about like what additional charges are included in your monthly mortgage bill, and it had property taxes and then HOA fees as an option, but I didn't see homeowners insurance, and I
No,
assume
that's a separate program. If your homeowner, if you're for the mortgage part, that covers not just the principal and interest on the loan, but whatever the escrows are, right? So that's what
Right.
you're behind on. Whatever those escrows covers, if there's mortgage insurance, if there's
right.
property taxes, whatever they cover in there, that's what it's covered in that escrow. But you can, for example, and like we did with MAP, but it's even more expansive here, is that if you don't have a mortgage problem, if you don't have a mortgage at all, but you owe property taxes, or if you owe HOA fees, you can request assistance specifically for those things. And you're not necessarily asking for help with your mortgage. You're just asking for these individual things separately because you don't pay them through your mortgage. That's
Okay,
all.
I mean, we went through pretty quickly. It just looked like
Yeah,
in the
yeah, no, I
each
know.
section, there
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a question about what was included in the escrow.
The reason we ask there is because this program is going to be able to provide property tax assistance and association fee assistance. So we only needed to know about those two for this to roll out the rest of the application. But George, I just wanted to clarify that it is a required field. If you're applying for mortgage assistance, you do need to input your original amount borrowed.
But
And it's required. It's required because we need to compare it to the conforming loan limit as per the Treasury regulations.
But I thought it was
Problem for affiliates to track that down. I will say
Yeah.
that much right now.
I think we had more conversation about that. This may be a little earlier version. We'll get back to that.
Okay.
Okay, and a clarifying question on the promissory note from Zachariah. What if the promissory note includes someone who no longer lives in the household? Will they need to include the income of that person who is the promissory note, but no longer lives in the house? Will that person need to be involved at all?
Well, you got two issues. You've got if they're not in the household, their income isn't necessarily included. But if they're on the note, the mortgage servicer may not want to talk to us if we can't get their agreement on a third party agreement that we're allowed to talk to them about the loan at all. This issue came up with MAP, and what would happen is that the person in the house, the person who was probably the one actually paying on the mortgage, would need to provide some sort of attestation or backup to show this person doesn't live in the household anymore. This person doesn't provide help with paying this mortgage. Often it's a spouse who's passed away or people who've no longer together, and the documentation never got changed. But that's what has to happen. It has to be handled on a special case basis.
So
Thank you very much. Clarify, can you, what is that? The attestation is just basically, they could say this person is no longer in the household, or do they need to provide documentation to support, death? That would be obvious, but if it's a situation where somebody is just not present anymore, that's a little bit more difficult.
It's going to end up being what the mortgage servicer requires. Sometimes you can just do it on the basis of an attestation, and sometimes they want to see something.
Okay,
So,
all right.
Thank you. So I am aware of the time. As expected, this was a lot of content to cover and a lot of question and answer. So we have a number of questions that are unanswered. So I'm going to play a little jazz here and look towards Leslie and George. We've got two options, really. We could either follow up with these questions in writing, and we'll be sending folks an email out with the recording today and some follow-up details, or we could continue going until we get to the end of the questions. So I want to look
George, do you have a preference? There are questions from Rick Castillo and another one from Grace and Don
I'm good for another 15 minutes or so, but then I have kind of a hard stop.
maybe those
Great.
folks could stay on if they wanted to. We could, Chad, maybe you were going to do this anyway, but we could just say a few words so that for folks that do need to leave in 2 minutes can hop off, and then George and I can stick around for anybody else who for these additional questions and anything else that folks want to ask about today.
Thank you, Leslie. So yeah, if we had one kind of more announcement, so if Leslie and George would like to give that, and then I will kind of let people go if they need to, and then I will let you all know what the timestamp is. So once you all get the recording, you can kind of skip to the end. So you don't need to watch the whole thing again. You could if you want to. That is totally possible. So Leslie, George, why don't you give that that brief update, and then we'll continue with Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, we just wanted to talk about next steps for this group, and also to acknowledge that a handful of the organizations that are going to be helping folks with applications are also housing counselors and Vermont Legal Aid, who will be providing legal services for applicants who need it. And we would like to set up a meeting with the housing counselors and Vermont Legal Aid to take place the week after Christmas. So the week of the 27th. So you'll be hearing more from us very soon to propose a meeting date, to propose an agreement for those agencies. We also will need something from you. Those agencies that are providing housing counseling and legal services will need the name of a tech support person in your shop, because you will be having some I can't technically speak to this, but you'll need some special attention to get your access to the system as counselors and legal service providers. And there's some machinations that need to be gone through for that. So Sarah, would you want the names of those technical folks at the counselors and legal service providers before the week of the 27th, or can it wait until then?
If they're going to be part of testing, then we need it before the week of the 27th.
Okay, so the sooner the better. If you are a housing counselor or Vermont Legal Aid, sending us the name and contact information for your tech person as soon as possible will enable us to give you the most access to that system as soon as possible.
And don't worry, you're not going to have to make any changes on your back end. We just need to get your public IP addresses.
We also, actually, this is for the case management portal, Dave, and it's a tunnel. It's an IPsec tunnel, so it's a little bit.
Okay, so
we're
setting up we have to set up a VPN for that, or how is that going to work?
Our contractor is going to be coaching folks through it, and they have 2 solutions. So if you can't connect via IPsec tunnel, then you can do it through a VPN that they'll set up.
Okay.
It's not available on the public internet because of all the private information. So it's all good. Just a little pain in setting it up, and then it will run smoother.
Okay. So just get us an IT contact within your organizations, and we can work it out with them.
So again, just for the counselors and the legal service provider, those are the only agencies that need to submit that information to any of us here at VHFA, George or me or Chad. We're happy to make that happen. And this group, we were anticipating being in touch with you a lot by email going forward, and by phone. We're available to answer individual questions, but then hoping that we can meet again in January after we've had a week or two with the system up and running. So after that happens, we don't know exactly when in January, but after that happens, a couple of weeks later, I'd love to propose that we get back together and see how it's working for you all.
Thank you, Liz. I see Bruce has his hand up. So any Bruce, a question
Yeah,
on
clarifying
this?
question on the tech support. I'm thinking we may need to involve our contractor tech support, not our in-house. Sarah's nodding her head, so maybe that's true. All right, so I can see if I can fish that up. I'm working the week of the 27th, but I know I've got a lot of people out the week of the 27th, and I have no idea if our vendor is available. So
If they're not, you'll be able to collect some information, and,
send us a
play
cheat sheet.
telephone.
All right.
Great. So again, any clarifying questions? I see Tom has his hand up.
Thank you, Chad. And just very briefly, I apologize if this is at the opening statements, but I just wanted to know what the length of the program is at this point as far as your intention. I know probably if funds run out, that'll change. And secondly, how much was allocated to the program that's going to be available at launch?
The program, the allocation for Vermont is $50 million. The program is times out by its own terms at the end of 2025, I believe. 2025, the end of 2025. That said, I don't think we're going to last that long. I think the money will run out earlier. We expect probably to be done by the end of 2023. That's sort of what we're looking at.
That's helpful, just for hiring purposes and staffing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, George.
Okay, so I think what we're gonna do is that I know we have already run over time, so folks need to jump off. You'll want to get the recording that we're going to send out the recording along with some links that we've included. So just think about marker at 1 hour, 7 minutes. You can start the recording at that point. So with that, George, how long do we want to go to? Can we go to 12:15 with the questions? Is that kind of the drop dead date here?
Yeah.
Time? Okay. Great. So I'm going to go back up and we're just going to walk through as many questions and answers as we can in the next 9 minutes. So I think we may have touched on this already, but I would just want to make sure, wondering about scanning documents and upload within an applicant's home. How do you suggest that be done?
That can be done with mobile devices.
Yeah.
That's one option on the application. We didn't see it on mobile, but you are able to take a photo of a document or upload something from your phone. So that may satisfy that. I'm not sure.
And again, the paper copy is another alternative here. Is that correct? If that process of using digital options is too cumbersome for folks?
Yes,
Okay.
there will be a paper option.
Okay, a question around, would it be okay if we created a fake client to run through, trying to make it clear it's not a real applicant?
If you want to set up an application, you mean just like go into the applicant portal and pretend you're an applicant and just go through and create a fake one? Yeah, I mean, it's what I would do is just go all the way to the end and not hit submit. Right. And that way you're not creating something in the system that is trying to find you and ask you for information. But if you want to go through the application process just to see what it looks like, you can do that, without a problem. You can do that from different, do it on a PC, then go back and try to do it on the mobile just to see what it looks like on your phone, do it in different ways.
George, there's the caveat that we're going to need a public IP address before that, because Spiridian is still filtering this out based upon an allow list.
Yeah, all of that would have to happen after the soft launch.
Yeah, no, this would be after the portal is available publicly. I think this is, if somebody was saying, well, once it's open, can I just play with it and see? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
I think that was the intent of the question, but maybe not.
Great, thank you both. So a question around income. Again, this may have been touched on, but just to be clear, what is the process for a client with no reportable income, and are tax returns required for self-employed clients?
Well, everybody files tax returns, so yes. If you don't have a tax return to submit, then there are options for submitting 1099s or W-2s or pay stubs. I mean, we do need somehow to verify income.
Okay, just a note, not everyone files tax returns in the chat.
Well, I mean, there are
so-
people who don't make enough income to file, right? Or they don't file because they don't believe in the government or something. But if you don't believe in the government, why are you coming to us for money? That's just a joke. There will be, if you don't have a tax return information, there will still need to be some sort of verification on what income you do get.
So thanks, Patricia and Karen, for noting that there are folks in a variety of different reasons why folks would not apply for.
Right. Mostly, I think it's because you don't
taxes.
make enough to be obligated, and so you don't have to.
So thank you for pointing that out for us. So going back, just up here, just 1 second. Is there an option to receive communication only via telephone or mail?
Well, if you don't have a email, then your communication will be by phone. You can ask, I guess, for mail, and we'll see what we can accommodate. I would not suggest it, though, because the mail is, we send a letter, we don't know what happens to it. We know if a phone call hasn't been answered and it has to be responded to. So those are for people who are just don't have any sort of internet connectivity. There is the option of getting communication some other way, but I would say mail would be the lowest the option, the least preferred option, just because I can foresee a lot of issues with people not getting messages.
Okay, so there were a couple of comments around just being able to have access to different forms. So it sounds like, George, you're just saying that the mail may be slower and there might be some issues, but that would be an option for folks if email access or electronic is challenging.
Right.
Okay. Let's see here, just kind of going through, is there ability to use a receipt of food stamps or other need-based public benefits as a proxy for food proof of income? Same question for geographical proxy, which is now available as a proxy for proof of income in VRAP.
Yeah.
I don't know if our same things apply, but we do have geographical proxies for what are called distressed areas. I don't know if the Treasury regulations on that for Homeowner Assistance Program are the same as the Treasury regulations on that for ERAP. I would hope they would be, but you never know. And then we do have allow for proxy if you're getting 3 squares or SNAP, or not, or SNAP, TANF, what do they call it? Reach Up.
Reach Up.
Reach Up in Vermont, it's called.
Great. So George, that's awesome. Can I ask about how the geographic proxy is working? Like, is that just picked up based on the address that you put into the application, or you have to somehow self-select that and make your own determination? Because that's how it is on the VRAP side, which is not great, but just wondering how that on the application, how that shakes out. I'm someone who's going to have difficulty pulling together income documents. How do I determine that I am, eligible by a geographic proxy?
The application basically just asks, there's a place where you can say, I don't have an ability to provide you with information, right? And you click that box, and so it'll stop asking you to provide pieces of paper. At that point, it's going to go to case management. One of the things that they are going to look for is what's this address, and are they in one of these locations? Because then they don't have to call, they don't have to ask for anything more. Whereas, so it's
Great. So it takes nothing affirmative on the part of the applicant other than to say, I can't pull together my proof of income.
Exactly. And then it becomes a case management issue and follow up. And what is it that you do have, and where are you, and all the rest of that.
Great. Thank you.
All right, I've got time for probably one or two more responses, and then we'll have to follow up with the rest. So here's a question around the affiliate agreement. How is additional assistance to applicants billed if there is a one-time payment for each application submitted with help from an affiliate? So I think this is in regards to the invoicing that affiliates would need to do for the translation or transportation.
I guess I'm not understanding the question. I mean, if you've helped somebody apply, right? And is it because if you go back and you help and they applied for 3 programs and then they come back and they want to apply for another program?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is structured for you kind of you get paid $100 per applicant. And if that applicant starts to need more time than $100 will pay for, they probably need some other service, like housing counseling or legal services, but it's not really set up. We weren't expecting that there would be more money per applicant than the $100. Is that right, George?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea is it's a flat fee per applicant, and that's one of the reasons that, to the extent we're going to allow for people to necessarily maybe ask for different things at different times, it's going to be within a constrained time period, because otherwise then they have to just file a whole new application. And then, plus the intent here is to help as many people as possible, not to create a $30,000 bank for the first 1,500 people who apply and then not allow anybody else to apply. So that would be the process that we're talking about. And thanks, Leslie, for laying it out.
Great. So we got through most of the questions in the chat. I think we're going to have to, unfortunately, at this time, wrap up. And so we don't have too many more to go through. So what I'd suggest is that I'll pull those out and be able to have our staff respond to them. And I'll include the responses in the follow-up email, which will include, again, the links that we shared in the chat, the recording for today's webinar, and the slide deck. I believe we'll be able to provide the slide deck as well. Any other things that we'll be putting in that that I'm missing, Leslie or George?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that I want to pull together, but I don't know I don't know how long it will take me. I've been kind of using this affiliates space on VHFA's website as a place to put some tools and information for you all. And I will have, and that's where the agreement is, and that's where this PowerPoint slide deck that we saw a little bit of today is. So Chad's email will include the link to that, and I'll keep adding the tools and tricks that we talked about today that I said I would prepare. I'll add them there for you.
Great, and we will be getting this email out to folks as quickly as possible. I hope by tomorrow, if at all possible. Thank you all for spending an hour plus with us, and all of your questions and feedback have been extremely helpful, and this will make the program and the process and ultimately people's lives much better off. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.